I've talked to a lot of people who swear by bargain binoculars that cost less than $20, only to find themselves squinting at a blurry field and wondering why the great deal turned into a regret. The disappointment usually comes from a cheap focus knob that slips, lenses that fog up after a light rain, or a tiny exit pupil that makes nighttime viewing a struggle. So the question on everyone's mind is, does spending a premium on a name-brand pair like the Leica 10x42 Noctivid actually save you from those headaches, or is it just another pricey gimmick? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When you start looking at binoculars, the first thing you'll notice is the trade-off between magnification, objective size, and how much light the instrument can gather. Leica's Noctivid line promises a 10 magnification paired with a 42mm objective, which in theory gives you a 4.2mm exit pupil. That's the sweet spot for daylight use and still respectable for low-light conditions. The 6.4-degree angle of view means you'll see a decent slice of the scene at 10, enough to track a flock of birds without constantly recentering. What makes this model stand out on paper is the roof prism design, which keeps the binoculars compact, plus a waterproof seal that should let you pull them out of a drizzle or a misty morning without worrying about internal fog. But the real test comes when you actually put them in the field. Imagine you're on a weekend birdwatching trip in a local marsh. You pull the Leica out of its case, adjust the diopter, and point them at a heron wading in shallow water. The first thing you notice is the clarity of the feather detail. The Noctivid coating does a solid job of reducing glare and boosting contrast, so the bird's outline pops against the reflective water. The 10 power lets you see the texture of the beak without moving the whole body. In a scenario like this, the waterproof claim is more than just marketing. A few splashes from the water don't fog the lenses, and the rubber-sealed housing stays dry. That's a practical win for anyone who spends time in damp environments, whether it's a misty forest trail or a coastal walk. Now flip the script to a different use case, a low-light hunt at dusk. Here the 4.2mm exit pupil is decent, but you'll quickly feel the limits of a 42mm objective. The image is still usable, but the background starts to look a bit washed out, and you have to rely on steady hands to keep the view sharp. Some hunters prefer a larger objective, like 50mm, to push more light into the eye. The Leica's compact roof prism design is great for packing light, yet that same compactness means you're sacrificing a bit of low-light performance compared to bulkier models. If you regularly hunt or do astronomy after dark, you might find yourself wishing for a wider aperture. One of the practical strengths that often gets overlooked is the two objective lens caps and the one-piece eyepiece cover. Those caps are surprisingly robust. They snap on tightly and stay put when you're moving through brush. The eyepiece cover protects the prisms from dust and accidental knocks. In my own experience, a cheap pair of binoculars often comes with flimsy rubber caps that fall off or a flimsy strap that tears after a few trips. Leica's accessories feel like they're built to last, which is a real benefit if you're the type who leaves gear out in the car or tosses it into a backpack without much care. On the flip side, the price tag is the most obvious downside. Leica positions these as a premium option, and the cost reflects that. For someone who's just starting out with birding or hunting, the same budget could buy a pair with a larger objective or a wider field of view. The rating for this model sits at a modest 2.7 out of 5 stars from a handful of reviewers, which tells me that the community isn't uniformly thrilled. While I can't point to specific complaints, the score hints that the product may not meet every expectation. Perhaps the focus wheel isn't as smooth as other high-end brands, or the weight feels heavier than advertised after a full day of use. Those are the kind of subtle annoyances that only become apparent after you've actually taken the binoculars on a real outing. Who should consider buying the Leica 10x42 Noctivid? If you already own a decent pair of binoculars and are looking for a step up in optical clarity without adding bulk, this could be a logical move. It's also a solid choice for photographers or wildlife enthusiasts who need a reliable, waterproof pair that fits into a small bag and can handle a few splashes. The brand's heritage and the quality of the coatings mean you'll get crisp, high-contrast images in bright daylight, which is where the binoculars really shine. And if you value the prestige of the Leica name and don't mind paying a premium for that assurance, the Noctivid delivers on that front.